There are times when you're like, what the F? Like,
Yeah. How am I going to pay for this
how am I
bill?
and you just have to let it go and let God or let the universe provide. And then keep your mindset on you in the future you, and just keep picturing that.
Welcome my wife, Melissa Salazar, on the show. She's retired. She taught for 16 years. She's an international tea master. She's also has her certification in meditation. And we've been living in Arizona the past 4 years. We'll get into kind of like how we met at the end of the episode. But at the beginning of the episode, I want to get into her story.
I paid for all my classes. I paid for everything. I was working my ass off. By this point, I was 20 years old, and my mom said, okay, it's time for you to leave. You're costing too much money and this and that. You need to be out on your own. I was already, paying for my own phone bill, had paid for my own car, paid for my own college and everything. And I was devastated because I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for somewhere to live too? Once you let go of that fear, that's what it always comes down to. You can do it. It will make a way. There's a reason why you love what you love. Okay, so we're going to set the intention for an amazing, magical podcast. I'm going to be able to speak my truth with ease and flow, and it's just going to be epic. Okay?
All right. All right. Well, welcome to an episode that it's taken us 3 times. This is the third time working on getting an episode with my wife. Okay. And so I have content, she has content. We don't really have a whole lot of content together. We did YouTube for like 3+ years. You could check it out on my personal YouTube channel. And that was fun. Birth of our daughter, all the things. And I feel that this podcast is something that needs to be out there. And so we're on episode, where are we at, Jake? Is this episode like...
You need to tell your story. You need to tell your story.
What are we at, Jake? 3? Jacob? 3? No, we've already done more than that. I think
I wasn't there for
we're on like episode 5, bro, or 6 now. This is probably episode 6. 5 episodes on video, 6 episodes, 1 with just the audio. And we've been trying to get filming here for a while. So to set the tone, we got Papa John watching Jordan. It's 1:57 on Thursday, and we are like literally T-minus like 40, not even 48 hours before we're about to get on a plane to the Philippines. But welcome my wife, Melissa Salazar, on the show. We're gonna dive into the fact that, like, okay, she's retired. She taught for 16 years. She's an international tea master. She's also has her certification in meditation. And we've been living in Arizona the past 4 years. We'll get into kind of like how we met at the end of the episode. But at the beginning of the episode, I want to get into her story. I feel like, and it's like she said, I said, tell your story. And she just hasn't. So let's get into the beginning of Melissa Salazar. She's a twin. Her twin sister, believe it or not, is not identical, and knew that I was already going to be her husband and the father of her children. That's a whole other story we'll get into later on as well. So Melissa, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. Jacob, thank you so much for being behind the scenes. You're amazing.
Thank you.
There he is. And so, man, so you're actually, this is interesting. So we're living in Arizona right now, and actually she is an Arizona native. So we lived in California. That's how we met. I'll talk about that later, how we specifically met. So you were born on a base, right?
On an Air Force base. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is that Tucson?
Tucson,
Arizona,
Tucson,
on a base.
Mm-hmm.
What's your dad doing? Let's get into the story.
So my parents lived in Tucson because my dad was in the Air Force for a few years. And We only stayed there about 6 months once after we were born. My siblings lived there for, I think, a couple years.
Okay.
And then we grew up in California.
Got it. Got it. So then your dad was on the base, and then do you remember like why you went back to California, or did he change
My
locations, or?
mom really wanted to be back with her family, and
Ah,
she really wanted to go back because our families were originally from California. And, my father's parents immigrated here from Spain and Portugal. And so
mm,
they lived in Fremont, California, and they just wanted to go back.
nice.
So,
Okay, that's awesome. And then so you have your twin sister, and at this time, siblings.
yes. So I'm one of eight. And
Wow.
yeah, so there were four originals with my mom and my dad. There were four of us. I'm a twin. And we were kind of like the accident kids. It was like, oh, we're done with having our two kids. They sold everything. Oh, guess what? You have twins.
Can you relate? Were you an accident?
So we were a really big accident. And it was quite devastating for my mom, because they were only like 22 years old with four kids,
Mm,
and she was outside of the state.
dude,
So, it was
be
just a
rough.
lot. And then they ended up, of course, getting divorced when I was about 3. And then they both got remarried and had more kids.
Wow. Okay. And
Hmm.
so then your just saw squirrel
Hmm.
Jake's text message. I'm here. So they got a divorce, or what happened? Why did your parents split up, and why are all these other kids? Like, I'm so confused for the viewers and listeners out there.
So they were very young, and my mom wanted more of a lifestyle, and it just wasn't working out. So they decided to split up. She met my stepdad Jimmy
Mm,
when I was 3, and she married him, and that was the love of her life. And he was a great stepdad, and then my dad had got married, and then that didn't work out, and then he got remarried to
mm,
Colette, who was my stepmom for most of my life, and she was great as well too. So
mm.
we still always like get together and have lots of family stuff together. Nobody wrongs the other person, so it's kind of nice that we have this kind of cohesive family that we can still get together and still have fun.
Yeah, got it. Interesting, interesting. So it sounds like, and it's interesting because I know all of the things, and they don't know all the things, and I want to go deep here. So I want more. I want this to be as raw and as juicy as you can give it to us. Like,
Okay.
why did John not stay with your mom? What happened?
There was some infidelity there and some other things happening. And she met Jimmy, and Jimmy was what she wanted apparently. So,
Hmm. Got it. And then, for people out there that maybe are dealing with, or going to be going through, or haven't gone through, and maybe it comes up, who knows? There's a lot of different people out there that experience things, and we want to meet people where they're at. So give us some context from the perspective of like your parents splitting up, and like, how did that make you feel, and like going through that process?
so I don't remember anything about it
How old were
because
you?
I was only 3.
Okay. Okay.
And the only memory I have is of them arguing one night. And that's just about it. And then I remember Jimmy, and, I called him dad right away because I was very young, and he accepted me like his own, and he was very, very good to us. So that's kind of where it started. I know that my mom said I used to cry for my dad every night, and
Hmm.
I don't remember that. So
Hmm. Interesting. And then so you would go back and forth between parents, or?
yeah, so once Colette came into the picture, we had more regular visiting times with my dad, like on the weekends. Either, Adrian. So because they had 4 of us, 2 of them went with my mom, which was me and Michelle, and
Okay.
2 of them went with my dad. And my mom was pretty devastated about that because those were the 2 that she originally wanted. And so we always said, like, we're kind of like the stepchildren.
Mm.
So we, went with my mom. So either the kids would come over our house, or we would go over dad's house for the weekend.
Got it. Okay, okay. And that's so it's interesting. It sounds like to have two different worlds. How was it to have two different worlds like that? Like, what did you learn having two different households? I mean, I can imagine there are people who could be watching that had never had that happen to them. Someone who's going through that currently right now, and maybe they can relate to you with what happened and how you went through that dynamic. Was it like weekends? Was it weekdays? Like, how did that even transpire?
So it was always weekends. And, we lived in San Leandro. We grew up in San Leandro, close to Oakland, California. And they lived in Fremont. So, we would trade weekends and stuff like that. It was kind of cool because it was a totally different take. Like, my mom and my stepmom were like yin and yang, like totally opposites. My mom is very, she's a cosmetologist, so she does hair and nails, and she's very much submissive type style wife, whereas my stepmom is a very kind of independent, very successful engineer. And so it just was a very different. My mom, wears makeup and Colette doesn't.
Wow.
So it was cool to see kind of like two sides of things. My dads are both very different. I have a good relationship with both of my dads, and they're very, very different. My dad is very like extreme sport oriented, taught karate and taekwondo for many years. And then my stepdad was a fisherman and a golfer, and just totally different. So,
Wow.
so it was kind of cool because I feel like it made me a little more well-rounded, a little bit more independent as I got older.
Yeah, interesting. I feel like that's kind of a liftoff moment there. And Jake, we're gonna have to get our buttons right over here. And if you don't already know, we like to talk about when individuals had on the show liftoff personally, professionally, and spiritually. It seems like that's kind of like a personal liftoff moment for you, just to be able to have contrast. I feel like contrast in life is something that gives life its color, right? If we don't have yin, then you can't have yang, right? And like before we got on the show, Jake was joking about us because we had our own little bougie moments trying to do whatever, and he was back there just laughing at us. But having that contrast, like, was that something that you felt helped you develop and blossom and bloom into basically who you are here, today?
Yeah, tremendously, because later in life, I appreciated more some of the things that I learned from my stepmom. And definitely both dads were great to me. I mean, I'm totally a daddy's girl. I love both of my dads, and I'm so lucky to have had that experience.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And so now we're fast forwarding here. You've gone through all these things in your life, and now you're at a point where maybe you have a little bit more stability. I mean, take us through, middle school, high school. Like, what does that whole world look like?
So, growing up in close to Oakland, California, I was the only white girl. And not only that, but I had freckles and I had red hair. And I was teased a lot for my skin and my freckles and my hair, of course.
I mean, come on. Does she not look beautiful here? Look at her.
So I think that I'll tell you as we get in later on why I was so driven fitness wise and all of those things. But I just kept having this come up in my life where people would say, "Oh, you're really pretty for a redhead." And that really stung because it meant to me that like you're not pretty, but you're pretty for a redhead. But you'll never be as pretty as like a brunette or a blonde or, anything else really. So it kind of made me feel like a second class citizen almost, and, I know people don't think about it when they say it, but that's what I internalized. And my mother's grandmother had red hair. Well, she, had a very complicated relationship with her. So she always, she didn't quite like my red hair. And so, that was kind of known. So for so long of my life, I hated it. My twin has brown hair, brown skin, and she's, absolutely beautiful. And I just always remember wishing that I had brown skin or even was able to tan. And like, my dad's Spanish and Portuguese, and my mom is English and Irish and all these other things. And so I was the only one that had this like crazy red hair and white skin. And so it was kind of embarrassing. Sometimes I remember wearing like long sleeves and long pants so that nobody could see my skin. And I just remember like even in junior high, like there was a guy that I liked or something, and he said, "Well, she has red hair."
Mm.
So I don't know what that was about, but it, obviously hurt my feelings,
Yeah.
and so I kind of like internalized that and just thought, okay, I'll never be good enough. So
Mm.
fitness became super important to me because it's like, well, I can't change my hair, predominantly. I can't change my skin. I can dye it, but I'm still a redhead, right?
Yeah.
So, but I can change my fitness level and make sure that I look as good as I possibly can. You
Very
know?
interesting. It's interesting how individuals out there like to stereotype one another. And, it's like we judge based off of the skin pigment or we judge based off of the look,
Hmm.
and it's unfortunate. And, or you could look at it as a fortunate thing because it built your character. And one thing we'll talk about later on as far as our relationship that I was
Hmm.
attracted to with Melissa is the fact that she worked out. I love the fact that you love health and fitness and worked out. And that was something that I knew that was just like, it's just life, right? It's
Hmm.
not like, oh, I'm on a diet or, oh, I'm just working out. It's like, no, this
Right.
is
I was
life.
like obsessed with being as fit as possible and, all the things.
That's very interesting. So fast forward going through, middle school, high school, dealing with those type of
Hmm.
things. And did you ever overcome it? Did you just kind of
Well,
live with it? Like,
yeah, I mean, we moved to Livermore, which is a very predominantly white area
okay.
in California, and I just remember still not feeling 100% like I fit in because I was wearing baggy clothes. I was from basically Oakland, and I still kind of felt like I was not, a cowgirl or whatever.
Mm,
And so, at least, I didn't get made fun of in that way because there were like a couple other redheads there. So it was kind of cool. I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. I get to
yeah.
see other girls with red hair. And so I kind of, that kind of eased it a little bit. And then, in college, I was like dyeing my hair, I think like predominantly like strawberry blonde. It was like mostly blonde
Mm.
and going to a tanning booth and all of this stuff. And that's when I met my ex-husband.
Interesting. And it's crazy. Just to give you guys some context, like San Lorenzo out there, Oakland, a bit more like ghetto, Hispanics, like blacks, like, more slang, more rap. And then you go out to Livermore, then you're talking about cowboys and cowgirls and cowboy music and, or especially country music.
Hmm.
And so you went through these two big
Hmm.
extremes talking about contrast, right?
Yeah.
So, anyone out there that's listening, I feel like just know is who you are is who you are, and you have to love yourself, right, at
Hmm.
the end of the day, and not try to do something to take away from your true authentic self, if you
Yeah.
will, right, which I feel like you did until you got to a
Hmm.
point where you didn't have to. So before we get into kind of your ex-husband and that story, so you're going through middle school, going through high school, these are some things that are coming up for you, and now you're talked a little bit about college. And so I would like to talk a little bit about college. And so you're saying tanning
Hmm.
beds, dyeing your hair. What are you going to school for? What does that
Right.
look like?
So my parents didn't really have a plan for us for college. So it was like, if you want to go, you can go. That's going to be up to you. You're going to have to pay for it and figure it out. And if you don't, that's totally fine because they both
Interesting.
had trades. So my boyfriend at the time, Matt, he's amazing. He was going to college, and I said, well, then I'm going to go too. So I
Nice.
started at a JC. School was always pretty easy for me, just in terms of like I would just get stuff done really fast.
Yeah.
And I didn't really care what my grade was. I was more concerned with just getting it done and over with because that was
Mm,
not something I was interested in. And so I graduated 6 months early, and my mom said, if you're going to be graduated early, then you need to have two jobs. You're not going to just be home all day. So I had a job at a smoothie place in the daytime, and I worked I was a hostess at the time at Applebee's, and so I worked all day every day. Saving up for my first semester of college,
mm.
and I started at Las Positas for 2 years, and then paid for all that with that money. Then I became a server, started making a lot more money, and that's when I transferred over to Cal State Hayward. And, obviously my love for fitness and health was what I was going for my degree for. Once I got into Cal State Hayward and I started taking classes in my realm of what I loved, that's when I really took off. It was like Oh my gosh, I love this. I just remember for the first time in my life, because I had ADHD my whole life. It was hard to pay attention. And it was like the first time in my life that I could learn how to get hyper focused.
Mm.
And so I would literally hyper focus on my teachers, and I just loved it. I wanted to know everything about it. And so I got my degree in exercise nutrition and wellness. I paid for all my classes. I paid for everything. I was working my ass off. And at this time, I was like, by this point, I was 20 years old. And my mom said, okay, it's time for you to leave. You're costing too much money and this and that. You need to be out on your own. So I was already, paying for my own phone bill, had paid for my own car, paid for my own college and everything. And I was devastated because I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for somewhere to live too? Well, luckily, my sister had a room available in her apartment that she could rent out to me for like $400 or something cheap.
Yeah.
And it was right down the street from Cal State Hayward. And so I was so lucky and so happy to have the opportunity to do that and to have affordable rent that I could, live on my own, pay for college and do all the things on my own. And so I moved in with her. And around that time is where I met my ex-husband.
Wow. I got to say, first and foremost, congratulations. Liftoff moment from the perspective of like a lot of people get caught up from like thinking about how, right? You didn't think about how. You just thought about like, I'm doing it. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get my degree. You're working 2 jobs. You didn't think about how much it was going to cost, about all the things, and let things hold you up. You're like, I'm going to go for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to say kudos to you. And that's a liftoff moment for anyone who's listening and viewing out there, because, you could think about all the things that you have to do and think about all the circumstances and the reasons why or why not, or you could just go for it. Right. And if you haven't watched Jake's episode, Jacob behind the scenes, shout out, his episode's live and the team did an amazing, good job team for the editing that you did. Big thanks to the Liftoff agent for sponsoring the show. Like he just went for it and, now he's helping us with this podcast and doing amazing things on his end. So let's continue with the story now. Cause I'm just going to be honest with you all out there. Like I've heard this story, but I'm hearing it differently now with you, which is really cool because, it's like reading a book. You read a book once, you read it again, it's not exactly the same.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you've already done some college then. And so you're now already moved out. And this is when you're now meeting your husband or
Correct.
Your boyfriend, soon to be husband.
Yes, I was already moved out.
How did you guys meet?
In college. We met at a nutrition class.
Really?
Yes.
And was it like you just looked at each other? You're like,
No.
Like it was just like love at first sight or what?
Actually, no. He was just very funny. He class clown, so everybody would laugh about
he
whatever he would
distracted
say. Yeah, I mean he's very handsome. 6'4", blue eyes, brown hair, gorgeous smile. He was absolutely, beautiful person.
Yeah.
And obviously he's noticeable and he's funny and charismatic and all the things. And I just remember the first thing he said to me was, I was going to get the snack because each week we would have a healthy snack. And I went to like grab it and he said, "How is it?" And I said, "I haven't tried it yet." I don't know.
Oh my God.
So I could tell that he was nervous to talk to me. And then he talked to me and then we decided to do our project together. And then before you know it, we were hanging out and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay. So then this is one class that you had at the school. Got it. And then how did that start to transpire from the relationship and hanging out to like knowing that like this is the one?
I mean, it wasn't really like that. It was more so like, I grew up a Christian and, the next step is always marriage. Right.
Really?
So it's like, if you're going to be sleeping with someone or you're going to be doing this or whatever, you got to be married. So what ended up happening was Adrienne, my sister, had met her future husband and they were going to be moving out together. Well, that meant that I no longer had a place to live. So it was like, okay, shit, what am I going to do? Maybe we can move in together. Right. Me and my boyfriend at the time.
That's a no-no, right? Because you're not married.
But we weren't allowed to because we weren't married. And, already it was going to be that I had to move out with him regardless. But at least if I was engaged or something, it would soften the blow a little bit, so.
Like telling your parents, because you think your parents are going to be.
Right.
thinking some type of way? Because I know, shout out Gloria Globug. I know she's very traditional.
Yes. So I definitely wanted to do the right thing, and that's what you do. So I talked to him about it and he was like, okay, then let's just get married. And then, so we said, okay, let's get married. And then we moved in together, started planning our wedding. And, he was also in college and working as a server as well. So we both made pretty good money together, and we could afford a place in Pleasanton, a nice apartment.
Pleasantville.
Yeah, it's basically like Pleasantville. And so I had gotten a new job at Strizzy's. I love Strizzy's. Shout out Strizzy's. I worked there for 6 years, finished college, and yeah, and then we moved to. I ended up going through the credential program because I decided to become a teacher. So I became a phys ed and health teacher. I have both credentials, and what ended up happening was to do the credential program, I had to move to San Francisco.
Interesting.
Still my favorite place on earth. San Francisco was absolutely amazing. We lived right by the park, by Golden Gate Park. So I was by the beach, I was by the park.
And this is like, so you lived in Pleasanton first, and then you got to that point where like, okay, I have to go over here to San Francisco.
Yeah, because I was going to do the credential program, and I wasn't going to commute every day. That was.
And he was cool with that because he had a commute.
He loved it because number one, that's where all the great restaurants are, right? And number two,
money.
And he was doing video editing at the time too. So there's just a lot more opportunity there, and all his friends were there as well.
Got it.
So, so we, so we moved there.
Jake.
Oh God. And then, and that's when everything kind of crashed. So we were together from 20 till I was 30. So this is around, I would say I was probably, I want to say 26, 27.
So now you've been with him for how long? You already got married. What's going on here?
Yep, we already got married. And then, we lived in Pleasanton working, doing our thing.
So you got married before you went to San Francisco?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. And then it sounds like the marriage thing was like the next thing because of the social norms from the construct of.
Well, we loved each other.
Okay.
We did a lot of fun stuff together. We backpacked all around Europe, Spain. We backpacked around Central America. We did a lot together. He was very outdoorsy. We did a lot of backpacking. We did a lot of camping. We did a lot of health stuff.
Interesting.
And we were on the same page about a lot of things. But like I said, he's very charismatic, very womanizing. So that was, part of the things that were kind of a red flag to me. And he was aggressive in some ways. He wouldn't let me wear certain things, was very controlling. So there were some things that were already, kind of standing out. He was a little bit over the top.
Interesting. And so your parents loved him. His parents loved you. Like, everything was just hunky-dory there too.
From a really good family. And he, everything was good. And then all of a sudden, we moved to San Francisco and everything came crashing down. It was like all of a sudden he wasn't coming home. He would be out for days. I would be out of my mind, like looking for him, started drinking alcohol, and he just went downhill.
So the womanizer thing and everything else, before we go deeper into this story. So was there like a trigger or something that you saw or a moment in time? Like,
there were a lot of accusations of him going outside the marriage, whether it's flirting or more, whatever. There was a lot of accusations that we had to deal with. And, he's a good talker. He could convince you almost anything. And so, as, the more progressed into alcoholism, the more physically abusive he became, to the point where I was afraid for my life. And I realized there is no way I could help him. I tried so hard to help him. I tried to, I thought, and it's so crazy how that works, but like, someone's going down the rabbit hole and then they're coming home and just throwing up all night. And, you work on cleaning, the toilet so it's nice and clean. So they want to come home. Or, it's just this weird concept that you kind of like go through. It's like this dependency type thing, and it's so weird. But at this point, I was going through my credential program, and I remember I was in the middle of my class, and he hadn't come home, and I just freaking lost it. I lost it in front of my instructor, and I talked to them, and I was able to go home for the day. And it was so hard just to keep going, knowing that, like, I don't know where my husband is. I don't know if he's alive. I don't know, what's going on. And I just was completely lost. And at this point, he had spent so much money on video equipment and stuff like that. We were so far into debt that I was paying like $1,000 a month just on minimum charges, like the minimum due. And so I had to put my groceries on a credit card because I had no extra money because I'm paying for my college, paying for the place. He's off the deep end, and I don't know where his money's going. And I'm just trying to keep it together, and I'm completely losing it. And finally, I gave up the struggle, after he just became so abusive. The upstairs neighbors would call the police and be like, afraid for me, and it got to that point where it was like, okay, I need to leave. And at this point, he was a completely different person. He was no longer the same person that I knew and loved. And so it wasn't that hard to leave in that aspect. And I realized, oh, wow, I can do this on my own because I'm the one paying for everything. I'm the one who is keeping this all together. Like I could do this. And I was perfectly happy, being a twin. I had a lot of people do things for me, and, especially my twin would take care of me. And it was like, I was perfectly happy with giving everybody else the responsibility and letting them take care of me. And when I realized that, like, I didn't even have access to my own funds because they were wrapped up in the accounts that he had created that I didn't even have passwords for.
Wow.
So just thinking about, I remember going to my dad and saying, Dad, what do I do? Like, I don't even know how to access my own money. It was crazy. And so once I got that established, I waited for a good time to tell him that we're going to have a divorce. And of course he flipped out, and I stayed an extra 6 months to help him get on his feet, paid for everything. And I said, just keep the money that you're making so that you can afford this place.
Yeah.
So then, fast forward, I move out after 6 months of absolute hell and torture from him, trying to help him out. He totally throws me under the rug with the owner of the house and says that she should find me for the rent.
Wow.
Because I'm the one with the money. Even though I stayed there an extra 6 months for him to save and pay for it. So I spoke with her. She understood the situation and felt bad. And thank God she didn't
talk to the neighbors.
She didn't fine me for it. But because we were so far into debt, we had to claim bankruptcy. So I lost everything. It was hard.
No, I can imagine. I mean, I can imagine. I got to say that, like,
I literally had to move out with nothing, with less than I had before. And I didn't even have a credit card. So, like, I couldn't, like, qualify for anything. And so I had no help. And thank God my other sister wanted to move out to San Francisco and find a place. And we found a place, close by. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, I have to start over at 30 years old. I have to start over completely from scratch. And, I had a good job. I had a job in San Francisco teaching physical education and health in a beautiful district in the marina right by the ocean. And that really saved me. And I tell people all the time that city saved me because it was beautiful. And I was so grateful to live there. And, I have a painting in my house, and I look at it because it was such a hard time in my life. And it always gave me hope, just being there. And I remember I worked on the weekends, and I had student teaching and all these classes and everything. So I could barely go home to see my parents and my sisters. And it was the hardest time in my life. And all I had was nature, really. I'd stare out the ocean and I'd, do different things. And so
Kept you grounded.
it did. It kept me grounded. And I don't know. I felt so good there.
Wow. Well, I gotta say, first and foremost,
So yeah.
congratulations on. I feel like there's a liftoff moment there where it's like you came to terms because you were a twin and you live with your mom, and then you need to go somewhere. So then you're with Dre, and then after with Dre, you then met your husband, and then you're with your husband, and you felt like this codependency, almost like you needed someone
Yeah.
else for something to be able to
Yes.
happen. So the silver lining, I think, for anyone out there, if you didn't put this together, it just came together for me. Just hearing, and I wanted to share
Yeah.
this, is that like you came to a point of independence, knowing that you can be independent, knowing that you can do it. And I can only imagine Jacob behind the scenes over here, like you thought you had it bad, bro. No, no, and there's no comparison, right? We all have our life
Everybody
story.
goes through their own thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
100%.
It's all relative.
And so, but what comes up for me is even for Jacob. Jacob, is learning how to do things on his own and not have that dependency, or, like with his ex-wife. And so I really appreciate you being vulnerable. And that's the point of this show, to show people that like, it's okay, open up, be vulnerable. And I know we're going to be getting to so much more beautiful stories here very, very soon. And, there's something to be said about nature, everyone out there. Like it grounds you. It is so amazing. I know that not Arizona, we're here in Arizona, but San Francisco, the ocean breeze, the trees. I know the running. You took me on some trails when we first started dating.
Probably the best place in the world to run. And I ran all over the world. And it just, the temperature is so unique and so beautiful that it's always cool on your skin. And I used to do the run from the marina to across the bridge and back all the time, which is about a 9.5 mile run. And I would stop at the midway point, and that's the painting that I have that I would just loved.
And it's here for anyone who comes to our house or you get on the show. It's in our living room. And to hear that story, I've heard it, but to hear it again and to hear it that way really puts a lot more emphasis on the painting and just the importance of what that symbolizes for you. Because I know that you told me the story that you didn't have the money for it, and then the person told you how much it was, and you started saving and saving to be able to purchase that.
Right.
And that was like your symbol.
Yes, that was the symbol of my solace, of like home to me. I just, for some reason, San Francisco has always felt like my real true home. I lived there for 6 years and I just loved it. I was close to Chinatown. That's when I got really into tea. And I loved it. So fast forward, I met someone else and moved to San Diego for a couple years. And the good thing about that came out of that relationship, he was a really nice guy. And he taught me that the other good thing that came out of that relationship was that he taught me that red hair was beautiful. And so for the first time in my life, I actually appreciated who I was. He actually preferred redheads, and I had never heard that was a thing before. And so I was like, wow, that's super cool. So I was just rocking it. I was like, yes, I'm a redhead, So that was the first time I really embraced it.
Lifts off.
Yeah. So things didn't work out. He
And you
ended
moved
up.
there for him?
I did.
That's
yes.
a huge, I
Yes,
mean,
we were together for like 4 years. Yeah. So that was really hard for me to leave.
Wow.
But I tried to getting a teaching position there. Nothing was available at the time, so I did long-term sub positions. I found Salad Master. I was selling that for a while, and then things didn't work out. We were engaged. We were supposed to get married, and then 3 months before our wedding, he just decided that he didn't want children. He didn't really want a family. And then later on, I find out that he cheated on me. But whatever. That's nor here nor there. But it really did create in me independence, because it was like, you know what? I don't really need a man. So although I wanted a partner, I wanted deeply, deeply, deeply to have a family.
Yeah.
And that was the main thing for me. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm in my 30s now. I'm in my mid 30s. I want children. Like, what am I going to do? Nobody's going to want me now that I'm so old and stuff. And so, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go inward. I had, once I got into that next relationship, I realized, holy smokes, like I have some issues. Like I had trust issues, of course, from my ex-husband who was, cheating alcoholic and all of the things. And so
Yeah.
I put myself in Al-Anon, which is for people who have addict partners or loved ones. And so I did that program. And then I found Landmark, and I did Landmark. I did all the whole program. I did everything. And then I also did the workshops. I absolutely loved it because it helped me understand who I was and what I really want and what was holding me back. And what was
Wow.
holding me back in life was fear. And once I realized that, I decided, wow, I want to do something in tea because I'm a teacher. And although I love it, it is not as fulfilling as I had hoped.
Wow.
So I taught for 16 years. And I would say 6 years in, I was like, oof, is this as good as it gets? So I I was still working, as a teacher, and in San Diego, I discovered that I wanted to do something in tea. So I found the International Tea Masters Association,
Okay.
and that's where I got trained, became a certified tea sommelier, and then I'm the type of person. It's like if I want to know about something, I want to know everything, single thing
Yeah.
about it. I become hyper focused and really, really into it. So I was like, well, I want to become a certified tea master. Well, I couldn't afford the course at the time. And Chaz had called me up. I will never forget this. I was on the football field teaching football, and he calls me up and he says, "I have the master's course position available for $500, and it's like $3,200."
Wow.
And he said, "I can offer it to you. Somebody canceled last minute." And I was like, oh my gosh, I was crying on the phone. I was so excited. So I went down, became a certified tea master, went through those courses. And then I became a certified tea blender because I wanted to create my own tea blends. I
Yeah.
wanted them to be dessert centric so that other people who are fitness related could have something delicious and dessert like, but without any calories. And so I wanted to create my own line of teas. And I remember I was going through that process as I was doing the blending course. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I just love this. This is, amazing. So I did all of that. And then I ended up doing more projects with Chaz. Chaz is no longer with us.
God bless.
Yeah. So I did a lot with him, and then moved back to California with by my family once things didn't work out with my ex, and started my life over again at 34 this time. And so at this point I was pretty devastated because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm probably never gonna have kids now. I was always the auntie but never the mom.
Yeah.
So I dated a lot. I got really into the fitness industry, became, I used to do like marathons and, that kind of thing. Then I did cycling, and then I decided I wanted to do fitness competitions. So I got a trainer, and I did my first NPC competition, and I loved it. So I was like, wow, I want to keep doing this. I think I can do better next time.
Yeah.
So then I placed my next round, and then I did, 5 more and placed, and I did really well. I didn't take anything other than tea. That's why I used to call it fueled by tea.
Taking some tea over here.
Just taking some tea. That's all. I still had carbs the entire time, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then I kind of got burnt out on it. So, and then, meanwhile, I was dating, here and there, and, different people. And the transition comes when, and at the same time, I'm still doing Landmark. I'm still really working on myself, counseling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, I'm discovering more and more about myself, and I'm realizing that, it just may not happen. I may not I have to be okay with being auntie and that being enough, and I spent a lot of time with my nephews and stuff. And so at this point I was dating someone, and he's a great guy, and he wasn't the love of my life, and I decided to break it off rather abruptly because I didn't want to waste any more time. I didn't want to waste his time. And I that was really hard for me because it meant that like this is probably my last chance.
Wow.
And I'm 38 at this point, and I'm probably not going to have children because I kept dating the same guy, right? Bodybuilders who didn't really want children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I broke it off and let it go, just let go of the fact that I'm okay with just being me and embracing other aspects of life if that meant that I couldn't be a mother. And as soon as that happened, boom, 4 months later, I meet Norm.
We got Liftoff. That's crazy. I didn't even know, thinking back, that it was 4 months.
4 months. Then I met Norm. And at first, I was like, no, you're way too young for me, and you're not going to want what I want. Because I was so busy, dating older guys who still didn't know what they wanted. And I was like, there's no way.
Dating younger.
And so I was like, there's no way you're going to be ready for what I'm ready for. Like older guys aren't even ready for this. So I was just straight up. I mean, at this point, I had gone through so much shit. I was like, you put a girl through enough fear and agony, eventually they don't give a F. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I was to that point where I just did not want to mess
Liftoff.
around. I did not have time. I had thankfully gotten my shit together, and I bought my first home. And this was
Let's go.
about, I want to say 6 to 8 months before I met Norm. I bought my first home.
Yeah.
All by myself. And I was so proud of myself because I had gone from bankruptcy to owning my own home. It took 7 years because it took 7 years to drop off the record. But I did it, and I was super proud of myself. So at this point, I'm like, you know what? I have a home. I have my career. I don't need anything else. I would love to have a partner, a life partner, and I would love to have children. And I'm okay if that doesn't happen. And then that's when I met Norm.
Yeah, it's crazy, and a whole lot of stuff that transpired there, and it's amazing, and it's a testimonial to just your tenacity, to your personality, to the fact that you just don't stop, keep moving forward. And I remember when we first started dating, there's a couple things that came up. I could tell, as far as, we could use the word like baggage. I don't want to use that negatively, just there's things that I could tell that came up in regards to our relationship. And it was rocky too at the beginning. Like at first it was, magical and all the things, and I remember meeting your twin sister, and that's Michelle, who is a real estate professional. And I met her because of Liftoff, and she looked at me kind of weird, and she's like, I just met your future husband and the father of your children. And she calls Melissa later on that. And she was right. And your twin sister and your best friend were all like, you're crazy. And so, I was like, hey, like, let's just have fun then. We're both busy. We'll have friends with benefits, whatever. And then before you know it, it's like, I guess there's more here.
Yeah. So it was strange because our relationship, we started off with friends, and I just kept finding myself always wanting to be around him. He's a very energetically attractive person. I don't know how else to word that, but his energy was so attractive that I just always wanted to be around it. And it was something that, was very magnetic. And I just loved it. We had a great time together, and we're on the same page about a lot of things, and we still are. We're a great team. And so we just continued to date, and then 4 months later, boom, pregnant.
Yeah. We didn't get married. We didn't go through that process, and did things a little unorthodox, but yeah, it was interesting going through the process, and just, I don't know. I hit my 30s. I was 31 at that time, and just knew to myself that I was like, all right, well, I'm just tired of dating and tired of just this person, that person, whatever. And I was always busy just wanting to grow my company. And so the fact that you laid it all out for me was easy peasy.
I was literally like, okay, this is what I want. And if you can't give that to me, then don't waste my time.
Yeah.
Hi.
100%. No, I
Yeah.
agreed with that. But no, it was interesting because, we didn't get married and then, we already were having, having Jordan. And so then you could watch basically at this point on YouTube, just look up Norman Lloyd Kinsey the third on YouTube and entrepreneur experience. And I was recording all this. We were going to tell our family we're going to get married. And so actually, technically, part of our family knew we were having a kid. The other part knew that we're getting married. We did like basically this party. We brought everyone in the same place. Yeah. So long story short, we had fortune cookies and it said, is it a boy or a girl? And then we did our party. And then some people thought I was going to propose to you. Other people thought we were going to be telling the family they were having a kid. And then before you know it, they all knew that we're getting married and having a
And
kid.
having a kid. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so funny.
Which is crazy. So, and I remember during the time that we were starting to date, you were going back and forth and telling me exactly what you wanted. And I was telling you what I was up to. And at this time, I just was living in a place for 10 years, just shy, about 9 years, and just moved over to Walnut Creek, California. And I was super excited about that. And do you want to tell them how we met?
Oh, we met on Instagram and I was doing a fitness competition and we had to vote. And so he was like voting for me and helping me, get out there. And then he's like, hey, we should meet up to work out together. And I said, okay, sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
That was
and
it.
then that was pretty much. We went out to Veggie Girl. After Veggie Girl, we hung out, and then she put me in the friend zone. And then afterwards, I was just like, okay, hanging out a bunch. So I was like, you want to be my girlfriend? And then already at this point now, your girlfriend, boyfriend girlfriend, and then we're having a child. And we told our family everything was going on. And at this time, you're still teaching, and you have your house, and then.
And I have my tea company. I had already started my tea company, but I was doing it on the side and on the weekends and stuff like that, kind of keeping it afloat, kind of not knowing exactly what direction I wanted to go. And then he helped me out a lot with that. We changed the website. We did a bunch of stuff through Liftoff Agent. They did
Yep.
an amazing job. I'm on the third rendition of my website and it looks absolutely amazing. So if you want to go check it out.
Let's go. Lift off. Let's go. We appreciate
Yeah.
the sponsorship. You guys are
Yeah.
amazing.
So right before this time, as I just first met him, I had a lot of opportunities to travel the world. I got invited to Japan. I got invited to Taiwan. I got invited to Malaysia and all these different countries, Nepal. And so I went for, tea business type stuff. Got invited to those different companies. I was able to travel the world and do all of this before I had Jordan, which was really nice, and create amazing relationships with tea farmers and the tea industry, people that I get all my teas and supplies from. So that was pivotal. So it really, is serendipitous that it all kind of aligned in the right way and the right timing.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I remember first starting to date, and she's overseas, and she's like, "You gotta get WhatsApp." I'm like, "What's that?" And then I never really was a big traveler, so I never traveled as
Yeah.
much as she did. And my upbringing and my family all kind of just stay in one location their whole entire life. Actually, pretty crazy that my dad's coming for Thanksgiving to our house for the first time ever, and now we're off to the Philippines, literally in like 2 days for
Can't
a
wait.
week. It's
I love to travel.
yeah, it's about to be freaking absolutely epic. But yeah, so it's crazy because I mean, we moved out here to Arizona for context, 2020 during COVID, and I said, "Hey, honey, what do you think about getting out of here?" And she was a California girl. Gave her my phone,
First, I was totally against it because I
yep,
didn't want to leave my family. Yeah.
showed her Zillow, but her mom was already out here,
And
and
my
her
mom was out here and my
stepfather.
stepdad. So I was like, okay, I do have some family there.
And
Mhm.
that's how I nudge, nudge, hint, hint, wink, wink.
Well, then he showed me the houses on Zillow. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
So my 2-bedroom townhome in Hayward, California, I sold that for 100,000 more than this 6-bedroom house with a pool, and it was just like, wow. The,
yeah.
the lifestyle out here compared to what we had in California, so different. And we loved the freedom. It was like, oh my gosh, this was the best move ever.
Yeah,
So,
you didn't have to worry about masks. You had to worry about all the BS, so which was
mhm.
really nice. And it changed the whole construct of everything, which is really cool. And I think that definitely, we got the house, ugliest house, nicest block, 441. And then from 441, they wanted 461. We got down to 441. And then 4 years in a row, it just literally just was nonstop. It just 100,000 first year, 100,000 second year, 100,000 third year, 100,000 fourth year. And like, we just kept seeing additional equity in this house. And we just knew that like, hey, it made more sense for us to like get where we wanted to go faster by moving out of the state, and then also not having to deal with all the bureaucracy and the BS that we were dealing with like in the California, and like the mask, and then they were starting to talk about vaccines and you have to have a card to go into places, to then coming out here. I
Right.
mean,
And making teachers feel like they'd have to take the shot, and I was totally against it. So coming out here was a heaven sent in so many ways, and we absolutely love it here now. We love the lifestyle. We love it here. And I mean, we made a lot of money in that move, and
yeah.
it just was like the best decision that we ever made. And Jordan loves it. I mean, we
Now
could give her a
can you believe
much
it? She's
better
6.
lifestyle. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. And we use this home for, Airbnb and a lot of other things because we don't really need, 6 rooms. So, so it's been great, and we love it. It's allowed me to go full-time tea.
Let's go. Congratulations. 2.5 years now.
Yes,
Two and a half
2
years.
years now of doing full-time tea, and I'm really seeing the ramp up happen in my business, because working full-time, being a mom, and trying to do the tea business was just way too much. And I was holding on to that paycheck, holding on, and it took a lot of self-development, mindset. To be able to let that go. That's probably what a lot of people struggle with.
A
Is
lot of late night
letting it-
conversations too.
Yeah, letting it go. So what we did is we took my 401k, or my CalSTRS out, and I used that money to flip mobiles, and I basically supplement my income that way, and it's allowed me to have the life of my dreams. And yes, it takes risks to have the life of your dreams, and you just have to go for it. As somebody who is very high on education and all of the things,
Following the rules.
following the rules. It was a very big challenge for me. And I tell you what, once you let go of that fear, that's what it always comes down to. You can do it. It will make a way. There's a reason why you love what you love. My passion is in tea. And if you guys know me, you know that I will do anything it takes to stretch to the end of the earth to educate people about tea and the health benefits. I've just recently gotten my certification in meditation practicing, and I'm adding that to my tea tastings because I really feel the power between.
Is that what you have over there?
Yes, this is my matcha tea, which I get straight from Kakagawa, Japan.
And you also have your new bowl. She's so excited about her bowl. She hasn't stopped playing with it for the past 2 days straight.
Oh my gosh. I just got this, so I'm still learning. But just listen to this. It's amazing. That's how it makes me feel.
It does have a resonance to it that makes you feel like, okay, I like this.
I absolutely love it. So, yeah, so that's where we're at today. I'm growing the business and expanding in new areas. I have a book coming out. It's called Tea Revolution, The Magic of Tea. And I'm super excited to share with people all the ins and outs of tea and the ability to use it in so many different ways than just in the cup. So I'm excited to have that come out. And I have a lot of projects coming up that are pretty exciting. And we have some projects together that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, some really cool how to basically do sourdough and tea tasting and your mindful meditation tea tasting. And we're going to be doing some stuff with the team in the Philippines, which is great. And yeah, so we definitely, anyone out there, you could go for it. You could do it if you have dreams and aspirations and not ever work a day in your life. It's not exactly.
Yeah. The excuse can't be, oh, my parents didn't pay for college, because guess what? You can do it.
Yeah, work two jobs.
You can totally do it. I did it. Yeah, you work your ass off. Yeah, you're tired AF, okay? But you just make it happen, because if your dreams are important to you, you will make it happen no matter what.
Let's go. Come on now. But yeah, definitely check out redzent.com. You can go to her YouTube channel and you can check out all of her mindful tea meditation practices. And there's lots of free just information and resources out there. For the people out there that's viewing and listening, like, what is the vision, long-term goal, if you were to kind of give us like this, like this visualization of what it looks like?
Yes. Well, I love doing talks. I do get asked to do talks, different places around the world. I would love to do more of that. Definitely having my book out as another revenue stream and an ability to reach other people, but also expand my business. I would love to have a brick and mortar, but to a point where I don't have to work in the business. I would love to facilitate the workshops there. I would love to facilitate meditation workshops, mindfulness tasting workshops, at that facility, and have it be such a magical place and a magical experience with the highest quality, tea blends ever, and delicious treats that you can eat with it, and just have a super chill vibe, very eclectic. I love all the different cultures. I love all the different teas. So I want to kind of incorporate that into it. I would love to be able to create a tea expo, where it's like an experiential expo, where you actually get the ability to fold the leaves and go through the entire process, and take a foot bath, and it's not just a bunch of booths where you get samples of things. Like, you're actually experiencing it on a whole nother level. That is my vision for tea, and just bringing it to the Americans and people who maybe don't get a lot of insight on what tea really is and all the different uses.
Yeah. And I think that ties back into your story from earlier, from San Francisco, and being in nature and the ocean and the trees and the grass, and just running and doing all the things that you're doing. Like, tea gives you a sense, because we all live in this matrix, and the matrix is like our phones. It's this box that we live in. It's this screen that you're watching on us on, or the headphones that you're listening to this podcast on. And there's something to be said about like grounding and nature, and tea is definitely something that is part of that process.
It's a way of connecting to ourselves and nature at the same time. And it's just so magical. And I just want to share that with everyone. And that's really my main passion. And I am a mommy now, and I love that. So brings me a lot of joy. And I just feel like all my dreams came true.
I was the guy to get that done. No.
Yeah.
No, but no, it's amazing, because it's we've been on the journey together for the past 7 years or so. So you got to see a lot of the growth when it comes to like the Liftoff agent side. I got to see a lot of the growth when I see what you're doing with Reds and Tea. Congratulations, because we've seen massive growth as far as orders coming in consistently, which has been amazing.
Yeah. And thank you to Liftoff agent and Smith. He is absolutely amazing. His team is amazing. And they, if I need anything or I need help on the website or whatever, it's instantly done. And they've done an amazing job with it. I just got a new about page, which I'm really excited about. So check them out if you guys haven't checked them out. If you are a real estate agent, I watch what my husband does. I watch his team. And if you want somebody who cares about what you do and knows the insides about it, that's who you want to hire.
No, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, because that's the problem out there. I think that, whether it's Liftoff or Reds NT or just any company, I think, those that win are the ones that actually care and have the heart and have the love and have the will. There's so many people out there that are thinking that it's just a quick buck and just get it done and whatever, and let's move on. But there's something to be said as far as how you go deeper with the thought process and the mindful practice that you put into place, where she won't blend her teas unless she feels a certain type of way. That's why she has the new bowl that she's the vibration bowl that she's doing, the sound healing bowl that can give you that sense of calm. And I can imagine you incorporating that into blending your teas. She writes you a hand written freaking note in every single tea order, and same with with Liftoff. Like I always say, like, what's your goals? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What's the process? And it was funny, those of you that have been watching and or listening, we're already an hour and 7 minutes in. There's something to be said where, like, the Liftoff experience, like, we're going back and forth with the team, and I told him, I said, this is an opportunity to go deeper and be more vulnerable, and you helped us out with our intro with the show, so thank you so much. And then Jacob's like, yeah, dude, I'll help you out, and let's do this, and like let's make it happen. And said something about the Liftoff Real Estate versus Technology, changed the name, and Smith's like, just do another podcast. And then he pushed back a little bit, but I'm like, you gotta go deeper. A lot of these podcasts, it's like, here's how you make $1 million or whatever. But it's like, let's go deeper and be vulnerable and go deeper into the story of us as human beings, because all of the things that you just said, someone out there can relate to.
Right. There's a lot of people who are trying to do both, and they're struggling with, well, I'm not making enough to quit my job yet. And then they end up quitting what they love because of it. And I just want to say to those people, continue going and make another way.
Yes.
And you will find another way. Sometimes it's not that cut and dry. I would love to have just, gone from one to the other and waited till I had enough money to do that. But we needed to find another way.
Yeah.
So we found another way.
And Danny was on our show. Shout out Danny. And so, and then we're going to have Bigelow on the show, his buddy that was behind the scenes. And Danny said in his show that you sometimes it's okay to walk away. If you need to walk away, whether it's the marriage that you were in, or, the marriage that you're in, or the relationship that you're in, or the situation that you're in with your job, sometimes it's like, just walk away, and the Lord, the universe, will look out for you. It'll come together. If you really are passionately, like even Jacob, he walked away from his relationship. If you're passionate and you know that you want something better for your life, it's okay just to walk away from it. 100%.
Yeah, it's all about fear. Can you take the step in fear? Just do it.
Yeah. Well,
it is scary. It doesn't get any easier. It is a process. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I quit. Now everything's okay. Like, no. There are times when you're like, what the F? Like,
yeah. How am I going to pay for this
how am I
bill?
gonna- and you just have to let it go and let God or let the universe provide.
Amen.
Because that's all there is to do. And then keep your mindset on you in the future you, and just keep picturing that.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like it's so hard, because you're there fearful of the fact that if I quit my job, what's next? How am I going to pay my bills?
And
what am I going to do?
The biggest thing for me was exactly that. How am I going to do this? How, it's okay to not know how.
Yes.
It's okay to not know how you're going to get there. It's okay to take that next step without knowing. And that's the hardest part, I think.
And even when you set up your goals, it's also the fear of unknowing of how you're going to achieve those goals. And then they say, like, oh, we'll just write them down, have a vision board. You could do a mind movie, and just feel how it would feel to already be in that future existence, which is, I think, Melissa and I have a hard time with that. We were really working on figuring out, like, how do we feel like we're in that future existence. And now we're having a little resistance with, like, say the fix and flips. And then we have some investors coming in, and we want to help our friends and family and give them the opportunity to take advantage of these opportunities. And the fix and flip stuff is like passive. It's set up, kind of forget it. And then, like, the market right now is starting to get better. And then in the summer, it sucks.
Right. And then there's something to be said about the law of assumption. And the law of assumption is just, and so it is. And so when you start to worry about something that's coming up for you, you have to remember that you have to let it go and assume that it's taken care of, and really assume. So you say to yourself, and so it is. And that's it. And then you let it go.
And so it is. So the question is, and so it is, should we do episode 2 of maybe a trilogy? I don't know. What do you think? Should we do another episode? I have no idea. And I just want to say that I appreciate you being on. I know this is the third time. We've gone through a lot of different...
Time's a charm. Hopefully this one actually works.
We got the audio over here. Are we go over there on the video? We're good. So we gotta take the audio and the video and put it together, and it should be fine.
Okay.
I don't know what's gonna happen. We'll see.
It should be good.
We'll see.